I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful asparagus and Gruyere tart. I'll also show you how to make short crust pastry. Now, if you want to cut a corner, you can absolutely buy your own short crust pastry, but I always think it's a really nice idea to know how to make it because it is actually quite easy. First of all, 225 grams of plain flour. I'm making this in my Cuisine Companion. Now I'll add the butter, which is 125 grams, cold butter when you're making pastry. And then we need to season this, so a good pinch of salt. Now I'll place the lid on and we want to process this until a fine crumb forms. All right. Perfect, fine crumbs. Now I've just separated an egg and I only want the egg yolk for this. Now add about half to 1 tablespoon of water and then you just want it to come together. If you add too much water at this stage, it will become sticky and we don't want that. So now with just a little bit of extra flour, I'll flour a clean board and we'll just pour this crumb directly onto the board. And now just using your hands, bring the whole thing together and knead it just lightly. You don't want to over knead it or else it'll become too short. Just squish it together, gather all those little crumbs and then press it down to form a disc. Now you can't roll this straight away because it will break up. You need that butter to chill again. And now this goes into the fridge, covered for about 1 hour. Now while we're waiting for that pastry to firm up, we can get on with a few other little jobs we need to do. I'm just going to bring some water to the boil, salted water, because we need to blanch our asparagus. I need these asparagus to fit into the tart tin that I'll be using, which is a really nice long rectangular one. So you just need to measure them up. I'm going to cut them roughly in half. The reason I've cut them in half is because I want to do a lovely pattern on the pastry once it's cooked. Okay, so the tops take little time to cook. So I place the stalks into the rapidly boiling water first. Give that about 5 to 10 seconds head start, and then we'll add the tops. Okay, these are looking good, so we'll take them out of that water and then we want to stop the cooking process immediately. So that's why I place them in some iced water. They'll also keep that vibrant green colour. And just submerge our little spears of asparagus and chill them down completely. If you're going to do it ahead of time, make sure that as soon as they're cool, take them out and dry them with some paper toweling because we don't want soggy pastry afterwards. So let's talk about the custard that we need to bind all of this together. A custard is a cream and egg base. We're making a savoury custard here. So 3 eggs, we'll crack them directly into our bowl. And I don't like this to be very eggy. I want it to be really silky, and that's why I like to add quite a lot of cream. So 200 mils, which is exactly this amount. We'll pour it in. I'm using pure cream. And then I'll season this with a pinch of salt and give it a good whisk. Break up those egg whites and bind that together. I'll also flavour this with some nutmeg. Again, another classic spice that goes with the Gruyere cheese. Okay, custard is done. All we need to do now is wait for our pastry to chill completely. I'll roll it out between 2 pieces of baking paper and then we'll fit it perfectly to our tart tin. Right, I've rolled this out now. I've made sure that the pastry is much larger than the tin, so we can easily roll it into the tin. I've just sprayed it with a little bit of oil and then grab your pastry, and you have to work quick here because you don't want that pastry to break because of the heat. So slowly lift it up. I'll bring this over here and then gently drape that into the tin. Voila. Now we just need to mould this, so I'm just going to press down ever so gently so it sits nicely in the tin. If there's any extra spots, you can do a bit of a cut and paste. This pastry is quite forgiving. Then we want to cut around the sides, and I just press down onto the tin. We'll take away the excess. And then just make sure that it's all pressed in and there's no air bubbles. Now we just need to pierce this with a fork to make sure that it cooks evenly, not too many. And then we need a little piece of baking paper, again, moulding it in. We need to cook this twice, so I like to add just some pastry weights, or you can use some rice. Spread it out, and now before you put it into the oven, you do need to put it back into the fridge because we don't want the pastry to shrink. And by all means, you can do this over a few days so you're ready to go if you want to make this for a picnic. So place in the fridge 1 more hour. I'll blind bake it for about 15 to 20 minutes, remove the baking paper and cook it for a further 10 to 15 minutes, just until that beautiful pastry is golden. The tart shell has come out of the oven. You don't need to let it cook for too long, maybe 5 minutes. I'm adding a little bit of the Gruyere cheese to the base of it. You can also use cheddar cheese for this. And then we're going to add our asparagus top to tail. See how it's now starting to come together? It looks quite pretty with that vibrant green of the asparagus. And look, I'm using asparagus because I just love them, but you could use many different types of vegetables. I've done this with silver beet. Just simply saute the silver beet off first before you add it to the dish. Onions work really well with this. Even good old tomatoes that have been dried in the oven first and then placed in this. They all go really nice with this creamy custard. All right, now, of course, lots more cheese. So we're sprinkling that over. Now for the custard, I'll just give that a really quick whisk. And I like this trick because we want it to be nice and neat and we don't want it to overflow. Pop the custard into a jug, making sure you get all of that nutmeg that's gathered on the bottom there. And then I want to fill this about 3/4 of the way. Now this goes into the oven. I cook this for about 20 to 30 minutes. Keep an eye on it. Once it's really golden on the top and that custard is set, it's ready to go. Now the tart has come out of the oven and I've allowed it to cool just so I can handle it. Now you can serve this warm or you can serve it cold. Take it out of the tin and just use a palette knife to very carefully remove the tart from the base. Ta-da! A savoury tart like this is fantastic for entertaining. So next time you have a picnic, do this, even have a go at making your own pastry. Tell you what, you'll be the most popular one at the picnic.